It is my high honor and privilege to welcome Maryland's greatest congressman, a medical doctor, a freedom fighter, a man of faith, and a dear personal friend, Congressman Andy Harris. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you very much this evening. I'm sorry I'm a little late because normally I would be here to welcome the candidate to the 1st Congressional District in lovely Eastern Shore of Maryland. But let's give Mr. Cox a Eastern Shore welcome right now. All right, now, you know from listening to Dan, let me back up. Let me tell you how I know Dan Cox, okay? It was probably 2010 or was it 2008? I don't remember. It was one of my first 2 races when Dan supported the conservative who was taking on the system. That's all I can say. I mean, I saw what was going on in the United States. I saw what was going on in the district and said, you know what? We need a constitutional conservative who's willing to go to Washington and fight for conservative values. And Dan supported me when I was in that race. So I appreciate Dan. I always remember that. I always remember going to your house, meeting a wonderful, large family, and getting a great welcome here on the Eastern Shore. And Secretary, is that right? You were in Secretary. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. You just listened to Dan Cox. Now you know in your heart, if every one of our children, every one of our voters had been educated properly in school about what this country is all about the principles on which it was founded, and how it's up to each one of us to preserve those principles and hand them on to the next generation, this would be a landslide, right? Would be, right? Because you rarely hear candidates talk about, regardless of what you'll hear on MSNBC or CNN or any of the mainstream media, that this country needs to return to its constitutional principles, starting at the top. Okay, and look, I'm in the federal government. I'm going to talk about the Bill of Rights, all right? Because I will tell you, our Bill of Rights have been trampled on at the federal level and to some extent at the state level. Am I right? Last year, many of you know, I got in trouble with some leaders in our government, maybe right at the top, when I said last spring that it was really strange that you could go to a Home Depot on a Sunday, but you can't go to your church. Right? Because I read that Constitution, and it didn't have a COVID exception in the First Amendment. Right? Is that right? But remember, the government said, you can't worship in your church. Go to that Home Depot on a Sunday. You can go to Walmart on a Sunday. But you can't worship in your church. Let me tell you something. That indicates a country and a state that has wandered very far from its constitutional principles. And beyond that, they want to take away your Second Amendment rights. People stand by while your Second Amendment rights are being taken away. This never ends well. Those infractions on your freedoms and liberties never, ever ends well. So the only solution, because we do live in a democratic republic, where we get to go to the polls every 4 years, and we get to make an educated decision that what's right for this state, and we're going to do it next year, what's right for this state, top to bottom. Ladies and gentlemen, every single person in the Maryland state government gets elected next year. The governor, the lieutenant governor, the comptroller, all the senators and delegates, they all get elected. If we wake up and wake up our fellow Marylanders to what's going on, and Dan touched on it, you go into a school system where they think teaching critical race theory is more important than reading, writing, and arithmetic, you have got a real problem in the state. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, you don't know, this is happening in our state. We have to take our schools back, we have to take our government back. We have to restore the freedoms and liberties that was one of the original 13 states we should be the defenders of. And ladies and gentlemen, you know, and when you evaluate the candidates, because you're going to get, those of you who are registered, if you're not registered Republican, you better register Republican because you can't vote for Dan Cox if you aren't, okay, in the primary. You know that when you cast that ballot next year, it's your duty to cast that ballot for the person who you think will restore. I don't mean continue. But I'm serious about this. It's like, oh, well, you know, he'll continue, or the candidate you vote for will continue, you know, to protect our freedoms. No, no, no. We need to restore them. They've been taken away, ladies and gentlemen. They've been taken away. You know, at the whim of an elected official somewhere, they could have told you that you couldn't have this gathering tonight. Right? Because 1 year ago and a few months ago, you couldn't have this gathering tonight. You could not have a political gathering to talk about a potential gubernatorial candidate because the government said you can't assemble. It's not right. These are things we have to fight for. Unfortunately, we don't have to fight the way the forefathers of the country fought with muskets and with weapons. We fight with a ballot. It's our duty to make sure everyone here votes, everyone educates their neighbors and friends about voting, and gets out and changes this state and this country, because we also have federal law. I'm on the ballot too next time. I'll put in a plug for myself. I'm going to ask all of you for your vote, okay, next year. I hope I earned it from you. We have to take this obligation very, very seriously. This is a turning point. This is a point. We don't need weak-kneed people. We need strong people in government who will stand up to the powers that be and say, this emperor has no clothes, enough is enough, we're going to restore the freedoms and liberties upon which this country was founded, and they're going to do it without reservation. Now, I know, because I've been watching what Dan's been doing, because when you ran for delegate, you know I supported you and I was there for you. I've watched what he's been doing. This is a person who reminds me of myself. It's a person who's willing to stand up to authority. And believe me, I was in Annapolis for 12 years. We're deep in the minority as Republicans, okay? It is not easy to stand up because they tell you, well, you know what? You're not going to get that little project in your district. You're not going to get this and you're not going to get that. And you need someone to say, let me tell you something, go shove it, buddy, because my freedoms and liberties are way more important for my people than anything you have to offer me. And that's what you need, because that's what it's all about. So Dan, I'm sorry I was late today. You got a great crowd today. Keep going. Thank you all very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Congressman.